Some losses never heal. They just become part of who you are. For 30 years, Harold Brennan carried the weight of raising 3 children alone after his wife walked out the door and never came back. Now, at 64, he's inherited his father's old fishing boat. His grown children immediately start fighting over it. One wants to sell it, another wants to restore it. The arguments grow heated in the old boathouse where Harold once taught them to fish. Then the door opens. A frail, aged woman steps inside. It's their mother, returned after 3 decades of silence. She's carrying a secret that will shake everything they believed about their family. What could she possibly say after all this time? Before we continue, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The morning fog rolled in thick over Penrose Harbour, the kind that made the old wooden docks disappear into grey nothingness. Harold Brennan stood at the edge of Pier 7, coffee cup warming his weathered hands, watching the mist curl around the pilings like ghost fingers. 64 years old, and he still woke before dawn. Some habits never broke, especially the ones forged in necessity. The boathouse stood behind him, paint peeling, boards weathered silver-grey by decades of salt air. Inside it, resting in the water like a sleeping giant, was the Mercy, 42 feet of timber and memory, his father's boat, now his. 3 weeks since Walter Brennan's funeral, and Harold still couldn't quite believe the old man was gone. He sipped his coffee, bitter and strong the way his father had taught him to make it. The harbour was waking up slowly. Clifford's voice carried across the water from the harbour master's office, talking to someone on the radio. A gull cried overhead, sharp and lonely. The smell of diesel fuel mixed with salt and seaweed, a perfume Harold had breathed his entire life. "You're out here early." Irene's voice came from behind him. She ran the harbour diner, had known Harold since he was a boy, catching crabs off this same pier. "Couldn't sleep," Harold said without turning. "Kids are coming today." "All 3? Irene moved beside him, her own cup of coffee steaming in the cool air. "All 3? He nodded toward the boathouse. "Walter left them the boat. Well, left it to me, but it's theirs too. They need to decide what to do with it." Irene made a sound that might have been sympathy or concern. "That's going to go well." Harold almost smiled. "Kenneth's already called twice about selling it. Pauline sent me restoration plans. Gregory hasn't returned my calls at all." "Same as always, then." "Same as always." They stood in comfortable silence, 2 people who'd known each other long enough that words weren't always necessary. Irene had served his family breakfast for 40 years. She'd been there the morning Claire left, had seen Harold walk in alone with 3 confused children, had never asked questions he couldn't answer. "Walter knew what he was doing," Irene said finally. "Leaving you that boat. Did he?" Harold's voice carried an edge of something not quite bitterness, not quite grief. "Or did he just give me one more thing to worry about? He gave you something that matters. There's a difference." Harold finished his coffee, crushed the paper cup in his fist. "I should get the place ready. Kenneth will be here by 9. He's always early when money's involved." "And Pauline? She'll be right on time. She's always right on time." "Gregory?" Harold's jaw tightened. "Gregory will show up eventually. He always does, even when he doesn't want to." Irene touched his arm, brief and warm. "It's good they're coming, Harold, even if it gets messy." "It'll get messy," he said. "It always does with the 3 of them." She left him there, footsteps fading on the dock. Harold turned to face the boathouse. Through the open doors he could see the Mercy's outline in the dim light. His father's boat, his boat now, the vessel that had fed his family for 2 generations, that had taught him about hard work and persistence, that had been the one constant thing in a life full of variables. He walked inside, flipped on the overhead lights. They flickered, buzzed, finally held. The boat sat in its slip, hull dark with age, brass fittings tarnished, wood dulled by time and weather. But solid, still solid after all these years. Harold climbed aboard, his feet, knowing every step, without thinking. The deck creaked under his weight. He made his way to the captain's cabin, ducked through the low doorway. Everything was exactly as Walter had left it. Charts still pinned to the walls, coffee-stained logbook on the navigator's table, a jacket hanging on a hook, smelling of pipe tobacco and machine oil. On the shelf above the helm, Harold found what he was looking for, a brass compass in a wooden box. He opened it carefully. The inscription inside the lid read, "To Walter, from your loving son, 1985. Harold had given it to his father on his 60th birthday, back when birthdays still felt worth celebrating. He ran his thumb over the engraving, remembering that day. Claire had been there, smiling in a yellow dress. The kids had been young Kenneth, barely a teenager, Pauline in pigtails, Gregory still in diapers. They'd all gone out on this boat, sailed around the harbour, eaten cake on the deck, while seagulls begged for scraps. 39 years ago. A lifetime. Harold closed the box, set it back on the shelf. He moved through the cabin, checking things automatically. The engine would need work. The electrical system was probably shot. The hull needed scraping and fresh paint. New lines, new canvas, new everything, really. Pauline's restoration plans weren't crazy. It could be done. But it would take time. It would take money. It would take all of them working together. And therein lay the problem. He climbed back to the deck, sat on the bench where his father used to sit, where Harold himself had sat 1,000 times over the years. This boat had been his sanctuary after Claire left, when the house felt too empty, when the kids' questions got too hard, when the loneliness threatened to drown him. He'd come here. He'd work on the engine, mend the nets, sand the wood until his hands bled. The boat never asked him why she left. It never looked at him with hurt, confused eyes. It just was solid, present, real. He heard a car in the parking lot. 9 o'clock exactly. Harold stood, brushed off his jeans, prepared himself. His oldest son would come in with spreadsheets and market analyses, with all the reasons why selling was the smart choice. And maybe it was the smart choice. Maybe holding onto this old boat was just sentiment, just an old man refusing to let go of the past. But sentiment had kept him alive for 30 years. Sentiment and duty, and the weight of 3 children who needed him. The footsteps on the dock were quick, purposeful. Kenneth appeared in the doorway, silhouetted against the morning light, tall like Harold, but softer around the middle. Expensive jacket, designer jeans, phone already in his hand. "Dad," Kenneth's voice was clipped, professional. "We need to talk about this boat." Harold looked at his son, at the man who used to sit right here and ask 1,000 questions about fish and tides and why the sky changed colors at sunset. That boy was gone, replaced by someone who saw everything as an asset or a liability. "Good morning to you too, Kenneth," Harold said quietly. Kenneth had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. "Sorry." "Morning, Dad. You look good." "You look tired." "Work's busy." Kenneth glanced around the cabin, his expression unreadable. "This place hasn't changed." "No," Harold agreed. "It hasn't." "That's the problem." Kenneth pulled out his phone, started swiping. "I've done the research. Boats like this age, in this condition, we'd be lucky to get 40,000, maybe 50 if we find the right buyer. Split 3 ways, that's still decent money for all of us." "Split 4 ways," Harold corrected. Kenneth looked up. "What?" "4 ways. I'm still here, Kenneth. I'm still your father. This is still my boat." The silence stretched between them, years of distance compressed into a single moment. "Of course," Kenneth said finally. 4 ways. My point stands. This boat is worth money we could all use. Is that what you need?" "Money? Everyone needs money, Dad. You're a real estate developer. You make more in a month than I make in a year." Kenneth's jaw tightened. "That's not the point." "Then what is the point?" Before Kenneth could answer, another car pulled up, footsteps lighter this time. Pauline's voice calling out, "Dad, Kenneth, you here?" She appeared in the doorway, and Harold's heart ached. She looked so much like Claire, same dark hair, same delicate features, same way of tilting her head when she was uncertain. 49 years old and still beautiful. "Hey, sweetheart," Harold said, opening his arms. Pauline hugged him tight, smelling of paint thinner and lavender. "I brought the plans. Wait until you see what we could do with this place." Kenneth made a sound of protest, but Pauline ignored him, already pulling rolled-up blueprints from her bag. "Pauline," Kenneth started, "we've been through this." "No, you've been through this," Pauline interrupted. "You've decided to sell. I've decided to save it. We haven't actually discussed anything. There's nothing to discuss. This boat is falling apart. This boat raised us." Pauline's voice rose. "This boat fed us. This boat is the only thing that stayed constant after Mum." She stopped, glanced at Harold, saw the pain flash across his face. "After Mom left," she finished quietly. "This boat matters, Kenneth. Sentiment doesn't pay bills. Not everything is about money." Harold held up his hands. "Hey, both of you, let's just—" A phone buzzed. Kenneth's. He glanced at it, frowned. "That's Gregory. He's 10 minutes out." "He's actually coming?" Pauline sounded surprised. "Apparently," Kenneth pocketed his phone, "probably just to avoid taking sides. Or," Harold said carefully, "maybe he's coming because his grandfather died and left him something that matters." Both of his children had the grace to look ashamed. They waited in tense silence, Pauline unrolling her blueprints on the navigator's table, Kenneth staring at his phone, Harold watching them both and wondering how it had come to this. When had his children become strangers who only gathered for funerals and inheritance disputes? He knew the answer, of course. 30 years ago. The day Claire walked out and never came back. The day their family broke into pieces that never quite fit together again. Gregory arrived in a rental car, stepping out slowly like a man approaching a crime scene. At 35, he was the youngest, the quietest, the one who'd moved furthest away both geographically and emotionally. He worked in IT consulting in Seattle, lived alone, called twice a year on holidays. Harold watched him walk down the dock, hands shoved deep in his jacket pockets, shoulders hunched against the morning chill. When Gregory finally stepped into the boathouse, his eyes went immediately to the boat, not to his family. "Hey, kiddo," Harold said softly. Gregory's smile was brief, uncomfortable. "Dad." "Kenneth." "Pauline." "You made it," Pauline said, moving to hug him. Gregory accepted it stiffly, patting her shoulder twice before stepping back. Flight was delayed. Gregory's eyes swept the cabin, taking in every detail. "Boat looks the same." "Grandpa never changed much," Kenneth said. "That's why we need to sell before it becomes a complete money pit." "We're not selling." Pauline's voice had an edge now. "We haven't decided anything yet." Harold tried to keep his tone neutral, mediating like he'd done for 30 years. "Let's just talk this through." "What's there to talk about?" Kenneth pulled out his phone again, showing them a real estate listing. "I've already contacted marine brokers. There's a market for vintage fishing boats. We could have this sold in a month." Pauline snatched the phone from his hand. "You already contacted brokers?" "Before we even discuss this, I'm being practical. You're being selfish." Pauline thrust the phone back at him. "This isn't just property, Kenneth. This is family history. Family history doesn't mean anything if it bankrupts us." "Bankrupts you? You drive a BMW. That's not the point." "Then what is the point?" Pauline's voice cracked. "Why does everything have to be about money with you?" Kenneth's face reddened. "Because someone in this family has to think practically. Someone has to make the hard choices instead of living in fantasy land with paintbrushes and dreams." "That's enough," Harold said, but his voice was too quiet, lost in the rising argument. "Fantasyland?" Pauline's laugh was bitter. "At least I create things. What do you do? Tear down old buildings and put up ugly condos? I provide housing. I run a business. I support my daughter. Your daughter you barely see because you work 80 hours a week." Kenneth stepped forward, jaw tight. Don't you dare bring Chloe into this. Why not? You brought my art into it. Gregory moved to the far corner of the cabin, pressing his back against the wall. Harold recognized the posture. He'd seen it 1,000 times. Gregory disappearing into himself, becoming small and invisible while his siblings fought. Stop, Harold said, louder this time. Both of you, stop. They ignored him. You've never understood responsibility, Kenneth shot at Pauline. You've spent your entire adult life chasing a career that's gone nowhere. I teach art to children. I help people. You work part-time at a community center because you can't make a living selling paintings. At least I'm not divorced because I cared more about money than my own wife. The silence that followed was crushing. Kenneth went pale. Pauline immediately looked stricken, but the words hung in the air between them, impossible to take back. Kenneth, she started. I didn't mean... Yes, you did. Kenneth's voice was flat, cold. You meant exactly that. Just like you meant it 5 years ago when Jennifer left. Just like you've always meant it. Harold moved between them. Enough. This isn't about your marriage or Pauline's career. This is about the boat. About what your grandfather wanted. What Grandpa wanted. Gregory spoke for the first time since the argument started, his voice quiet but sharp. Grandpa wanted us to be a family. Look at us. We can't be in the same room for 10 minutes without tearing each other apart. All three turned to look at him. Gregory pushed off from the wall, his face flushed with an emotion Harold rarely saw in his youngest son, anger. You two have been doing this my entire life, Gregory continued, fighting over everything. Who Dad loved more, who sacrificed more, who got the bigger bedroom, the better grades, the more attention. And I just... He stopped, swallowed hard. I just disappeared. Because that's what the youngest does, right? Stay out of the way. Don't make waves, don't take sides. Gregory, Harold said gently. I'm not finished. Gregory's hands were shaking. I moved 3,000 miles away to get away from this. From the constant fighting, from the competition, from the weight of trying to hold together a family that broke before I was old enough to remember it being whole. Pauline's eyes filled with tears. We didn't mean to make you feel, but you did. Gregory looked at each of them in turn. Every holiday, every phone call, every family gathering, it's exhausting. And now Grandpa's gone, and instead of grieving, instead of remembering him, we're fighting over money. It's not about the money, Pauline said softly. Isn't it? Gregory's laugh was hollow. Kenneth wants to sell because he needs control. You want to restore it because you need purpose. And I don't care either way because I learned a long time ago that nothing I say matters. Harold felt something crack inside his chest. That's not true, isn't it? Gregory met his father's eyes. When's the last time any of you asked what I wanted? What I thought? I'm the invisible one. The one who doesn't cause problems because he doesn't exist enough to cause them. The words hit Harold like physical blows. How had he not seen this? How had he let his youngest son become a ghost in his own family? I need some air. Gregory turned toward the door. Wait. Harold reached for him, but Gregory was already moving. I'll be back. Or I won't. Does it matter? He left. They heard his footsteps on the dock, rapid and uneven. A car door opened, closed. The engine started. Kenneth stared at the empty doorway. I didn't know he felt that way. Neither did I, Pauline whispered. Harold leaned against the navigator's table, suddenly exhausted. 64 years old, and he still didn't know how to fix his own family. 30 years of trying, and they were more broken than ever. His hand brushed against something on the table papers he'd been searching through earlier, looking for the boat's registration. He'd forgotten about them in the chaos of the morning. Now he pulled them toward him, shuffling through Walter's old documents. A yellowed envelope fell onto the table. Harold picked it up, frowned. It was addressed to him, in handwriting he didn't recognize. The postmark read New Orleans, Louisiana, 15 years ago. "What's that?" Kenneth asked. Harold turned the envelope over. It had never been opened. Somehow, in 15 years, his father had never given this to him, or maybe Walter had hidden it deliberately. "I don't know." Harold's fingers trembled as he worked at the seal. "Dad." Pauline moved closer. "Maybe we should." The boathouse door creaked open. They all turned, expecting Gregory to have come back. But it wasn't Gregory. A woman stood in the doorway, silhouetted against the late morning light. She was thin, almost frail, with white hair pulled back in a simple bun. She wore a threadbare coat and carried a small canvas bag. Her face was lined with age and something else, suffering, maybe, or long years of hard living. She stepped into the light, and Harold's world tilted sideways. The envelope fell from his hands. "Claire!" His voice came out as a rasp, barely audible. The woman's eyes, those same green eyes he'd fallen in love with 40 years ago, filled with tears. "Hello, Harold," she said quietly. "Hello, Kenneth." "Pauline." Kenneth made a sound like he'd been punched. Pauline grabbed her father's arm, whether to steady him or herself, Harold couldn't tell. Claire stood in the doorway of the boathouse, in front of the boat where they'd made so many memories, and spoke the words Harold had waited 30 years to hear. "I know I have no right to be here," she said, her voice shaking. "But I'm dying, and before I go, I need to tell you the truth." The morning light seemed to dim. The air grew thick, heavy. Harold couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process what he was seeing. His wife, the woman who'd left him with 3 children and 1,000 unanswered questions. The ghost who'd haunted every decision he'd made for 3 decades. She was standing right in front of him, and she said she was dying. Kenneth found his voice first. "You need to leave." His words were hard, clipped, final. He moved toward Claire like he might physically remove her from the boathouse. Harold put a hand on his son's chest, stopping him. "Kenneth," Harold said quietly, but Kenneth shook him off. "No, Dad, no." Kenneth's face was red, veins standing out on his neck. "She doesn't get to do this. She doesn't get to walk back in after 30 years. And "I know," Claire said, not moving from the doorway. "I know I don't have any right." "You're damn right you don't have any right," Kenneth's shout echoed in the small space. "Do you have any idea what you did to us? To him?" He gestured wildly at Harold. "He raised us alone. He worked 2 jobs. He stayed up with us when we were sick, helped with homework, taught us to drive, went to every school event, every game, every recital. Where were you?" Claire's face crumpled, but she didn't look away. "I was sick. That's not an excuse." "It's not an excuse," Claire agreed, her voice barely audible. "It's just the truth." Pauline was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. She stared at her mother like Claire might disappear if she blinked. Her hand was still gripping Harold's arm, fingers digging in so hard it hurt. "Mum?" Pauline's voice was small, childlike. "Is it really you?" "It's me, sweetheart." Claire took a tentative step forward. "You're so beautiful. You look just like—" "Don't." Pauline's tears came harder. "Don't you dare tell me what I look like. You don't know me. You don't know anything about me." "I know. I'm sorry." "Sorry?" Pauline laughed, high and brittle. "You're sorry? Do you know how many times I needed you? How many times I cried for you? I was 9 years old when you left. 9. I used to wake up every morning thinking maybe you'd come back that day. Maybe you'd walk through the door and everything would be okay again." Claire's hand went to her mouth, stifling a sob. "But you never came," Pauline continued. "Years went by. I stopped expecting you. I stopped hoping. And now you show up because you're dying? That's when you decide we matter?" "You always mattered," Claire said, her voice breaking. "You always—" She started coughing, deep and wet, her whole body shaking with it. Harold moved instinctively toward her, years of caretaking overriding his shock. He caught her elbow as she swayed. steadied her. "Sit down," he said, guiding her to the bench. "Dad, what are you doing?" Kenneth demanded. "She's sick." Harold helped Claire sit, noticed how light she was, how fragile, like she might break if he held too tight. Claire's coughing subsided. She pulled a tissue from her coat pocket, pressed it to her mouth. When she lowered it, Harold saw the red stain. Blood. His stomach dropped. "How long?" he asked quietly. Claire understood what he was asking. 6 months, they said. Maybe less. "What is it?" "Pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. She folded the tissue carefully, hiding the blood. "There's no treatment left to try." Pauline made a small, wounded sound. Kenneth turned away, his shoulders rigid. Harold stared at the woman he'd married, tried to reconcile her with the girl he'd known. Claire had been beautiful once, vibrant and full of life. This woman looked decades older than 62, worn down by years of something Harold didn't understand. "Why now?" he asked. "Why come back now?" Claire reached into her canvas bag with shaking hands. She pulled out a hospital bracelet, worn and faded, still fastened around her wrist. Harold leaned closer, read the printed text. "Street Catherine's Psychiatric Hospital, New Orleans." "I've been there," Claire said softly. "On and off for 30 years. Mostly on." Kenneth whirled around. "Psychiatric hospital?" "I had postpartum psychosis." Claire spoke the words carefully, like they might shatter if she wasn't gentle. "After Gregory was born, it never went away. It got worse." "That's not—" Pauline stopped, wiped her eyes. "That's not how postpartum psychosis works. It goes away. It's temporary." "Usually," Claire agreed, "but not always. Sometimes it triggers other things. Schizophrenia, severe depression, paranoia." She took a shaky breath. "I started hearing voices, seeing things that weren't there. I became convinced that I was going to hurt you." Harold felt the words like a punch to the gut. He remembered those last few months before she left. Claire's strange behavior, the way she'd avoid being alone with the baby, how she'd lock herself in the bathroom and cry for hours. He'd thought she was tired, overwhelmed. He'd tried to help, but she'd pushed him away. And then one morning, she was just gone. "I woke up one day," Claire continued, her voice distant, remembering, "and I looked at Gregory in his crib, and I didn't know who he was. I couldn't remember his name. I couldn't remember any of your names." She looked at Pauline, then at Kenneth. "You were strangers to me. And I was terrified because part of me knew that was wrong, but part of me wanted to—" She stopped, closed her eyes. "I left to protect you," she whispered. "I checked myself into a hospital in Portland first, then moved to New Orleans when I needed more intensive care. I've been there ever since." "For 30 years?" Harold's voice was hoarse. "You've been in a psychiatric hospital for 30 years?" "Not continuously. The last 15 years I've lived in a halfway house, worked as a janitor, stayed on medication. I was stable mostly." Claire opened her eyes, met his gaze. "But I never came back because I thought you were better off without me." "That wasn't your decision to make," Kenneth said harshly. "I know. We needed you," Pauline sobbed. "We needed our mother." "I know." "Then why didn't you come back?" Pauline demanded. "If you got stable, if you got better, why didn't you come home?" Claire was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely audible. "Because I was afraid. I was afraid you'd hate me. I was afraid I'd relapse. I was afraid that showing up would hurt you more than staying away." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I was wrong. I know that now. But by the time I realized it, so much time had passed." "How do you come back after 5 years? After 10? After 20? Harold wanted to be angry. He wanted to rage at her for abandoning them, for staying away, for all the missed birthdays and graduations and ordinary moments. But looking at her now, this frail, dying woman who'd been fighting demons, he couldn't imagine all he felt was a deep, aching sadness. "Your father knew," Claire said, looking at Harold. "Walter knew where I was." The words took a moment to land. When they did, Harold felt like the deck had dropped out from under him. "What?" "He found me about 20 years ago, hired a private investigator." Claire pulled more papers from her bag, letters, old and creased. "He wrote to me, begged me to come home, sent pictures of the kids, told me about their lives." She handed the letters to Harold. He recognized his father's handwriting immediately. Dozens of letters spanning 2 decades. His hands shook as he opened one at random. "Claire," it began, "Kenneth graduated top of his class. He's engaged to a lovely girl named Jennifer. I wish you could meet her. I wish you could see the man he's become. Harold needs you. The kids need you. I need you to be brave enough to come home." Harold's vision blurred. His father had known. For 20 years, Walter had known where Claire was, and he'd never said a word. "Why didn't he tell me?" Harold's voice cracked. "I made him promise," Claire said. "I told him if he told you, I'd disappear completely. I'd cut off all contact. He wanted to keep the connection, even if it was just letters. He hoped he could convince me to come back eventually." "Did he?" Pauline asked. "Convince you?" Claire nodded slowly. "His last letter came 6 months ago. He told me he was dying. He said," her voice broke, "he said his greatest regret was watching this family break apart. He asked me one last time to come home, to tell you the truth before it was too late." She looked around at all of them. Harold, Kenneth, Pauline. "Where's Gregory?" she asked suddenly, noticing the absence. "He left," Kenneth said flatly, "before you showed up." "Lucky him." "He always blamed himself," Harold said quietly, the realization settling over him. "For you leaving. He was the baby, the last one born. He thought it was his fault." Claire's face went white. "No. Oh God, no. He's carried that for 30 years. Harold stood, moved to the window, looked out at the empty parking lot. "And now you're here, and he's gone. And I don't—" He stopped, pressed his forehead against the glass. "I don't know how to fix this." Behind him, he heard Pauline crying, Kenneth pacing, Claire's labored breathing. "I have more to tell you," Claire said softly. "There's more you need to know. But maybe Gregory should be here for it." "What more could there possibly be?" Kenneth demanded. Claire looked at Harold, and he saw fear in her eyes, real deep fear. "Please," she said, "call Gregory. Ask him to come back. What I have to say, you all need to hear it together." Harold called Gregory 3 times before he answered. The conversation was brief, strained. Gregory had driven to the overlook on Highway 1, the place he used to go as a teenager when home felt too small. He didn't want to come back. Harold told him their mother was at the boathouse. The silence on the other end lasted so long, Harold thought the call had dropped. Then Gregory said he'd be there in 20 minutes and hung up. Those 20 minutes stretched like hours. Claire sat on the bench, pale and exhausted. Pauline stood as far from her as the small cabin would allow, arms wrapped around herself, tears drying on her cheeks. Kenneth paced, checking his phone, then putting it away, then checking it again. Harold didn't move from the window. He watched the parking lot, watched the harbour, watched anything but the woman who'd once been his wife. "I should have called first," Claire said into the silence. "Warned you. This was cruel." "Yes," Kenneth said. "It was." "Kenneth," Harold started, but his son cut him off. "No, Dad, it was cruel, showing up like this, dropping this on us. We deserved warning." "Would warning have made it easier?" Claire asked. Kenneth didn't answer. When Gregory's rental car finally pulled in, Harold felt a strange mixture of relief and dread. His younger son walked down the dock slowly, face blank, controlled. Gregory had always been good at hiding what he felt. It was a survival skill he'd learned early. He stepped into the boathouse, saw Claire, stopped. "Gregory," Claire said softly, You're so tall. Gregory's jaw worked. I was 5 when you left. I know. You missed 30 years. I know. And now you're dying. Claire flinched. Yes. Gregory laughed, sharp and bitter. That's almost funny. Come back just in time to leave again. Gregory, Harold said gently. What? Gregory turned on him. What am I supposed to say? Welcome home, Mom? Thanks for abandoning us? Glad you could fit us into your schedule before you die? I deserve that, Claire said. You deserve a lot more than that. Gregory moved to the far corner, the same spot he'd occupied earlier, making himself small. But I'm too tired to give it to you. Harold recognized the defense mechanism. Gregory shutting down, pulling back, protecting himself the only way he knew how. Sit down, kiddo, Harold said. Your mother has something to tell us. Something she says we all need to hear. Gregory didn't sit, but he stayed. That was something. Claire took a deep breath, reached into her bag again. This time she pulled out a leather-bound journal, worn smooth with age. She held it like it weighed 100 pounds. I kept this, she said. From the time Gregory was born until the day I checked into the hospital. I brought it to show you, so you'd understand. She held it out. Nobody moved to take it. Please, Claire whispered, read it. It's easier than trying to explain. Harold finally stepped forward, took the journal from her trembling hands. The leather was soft, darkened with years of handling. He opened it to a random page, saw Claire's handwriting neat at first, then deteriorating into something barely legible. Read it out loud, Pauline said quietly. If we're doing this, we're all doing this. Harold found the first entry, dated 3 weeks after Gregory's birth. He began to read. The 15th of March 1990. The baby cried all night. I know I should comfort him, but I can't remember why. Harold keeps asking if I'm okay. I tell him I'm just tired. That's a lie. I'm not tired. I'm disappearing. His voice caught. He cleared his throat, continued. March 22. I found knives in my dresser drawer today. I don't remember putting them there. Harold says I must have been cleaning, got distracted, but I think I hid them from myself. I think part of me knows what the other part wants to do. Pauline made a small sound of distress. Harold turned pages, chose another entry. April 3. Looked at Gregory in his crib this morning. Couldn't remember his name. Stood there for 10 minutes trying to remember. Finally, Kenneth came in, said, Mum, the baby's crying. The baby. Not Gregory. Just the baby. Because I couldn't remember. Kenneth had gone very still. April 10. The voices started today, telling me the children aren't safe, telling me I'm going to hurt them. I locked myself in the bathroom for 3 hours. Harold had to take the kids to his father's house. He thinks I'm depressed. It's so much worse than depression. Harold's hands shook as he turned more pages. The entries grew darker, more fragmented. Claire's handwriting deteriorating into something almost illegible. He read descriptions of paranoid delusions, of Claire convinced the children were changelings, that Harold was poisoning her food, that the house was filled with demons. May 2. Stood over Gregory's crib with a pillow in my hands. Don't remember picking it up. Don't remember walking to his room. Harold found me. Asked what I was doing. I said I was checking on the baby. But I know what I was about to do. God help me, I know. The cabin was completely silent except for Harold's voice, rough with emotion. May 5. I have to leave. It's the only way to keep them safe. I'm going to wait until Harold goes to work, until the kids are at school. I'm going to pack a bag and go. I'll leave a note. I'll explain. I'll tell them I love them, but I can't stay. I can't be trusted. I'm too broken. Harold turned the page. The next entry was dated a week later, written from a hospital in Portland. May 12. I did it. I left them. Harold will find the note. He'll understand. The children are safe now. That's all that matters. They're safe from me. He closed the journal, couldn't continue. His eyes were burning, throat tight. I never found the note, he said quietly. Claire's face crumpled. I left it on the kitchen table. It wasn't there when I came home. Harold set the journal down carefully. I searched the whole house. I called the police. I thought something terrible had happened to you. I thought you'd been taken, or hurt, or... He stopped, composed himself. There was no note, Claire. Maybe the wind, she started. Maybe. Harold didn't sound convinced. Or maybe you thought you left it but didn't. Maybe the illness made you think you did. Claire put her face in her hands. I thought you knew. I thought you understood why. For 30 years I thought you got the note and decided it was better if I stayed away. I spent 30 years thinking you chose to leave us, Harold said. That we weren't enough. That I wasn't enough. Harold. No. Let me finish. Harold's voice was steady but firm. I spent 3 decades raising our children alone, wondering what I did wrong, what I could have done differently. The kids grew up thinking their mother didn't want them, didn't love them enough to stay. He gestured to Kenneth, Pauline, Gregory. Look at them. Really look at them. Kenneth works himself to death because he needs control over something. Pauline chases a dream she's afraid to fully commit to because she's terrified of failure. And Gregory, his voice broke. Gregory made himself invisible because he thought he was the reason you left. I'm so sorry, Claire whispered. Sorry doesn't give us 30 years back, Kenneth said harshly. I know it doesn't. Claire looked up, met each of their eyes in turn. I know nothing I say can fix this. I know showing up now is selfish, but I'm dying. And before I go, I needed you to know the truth. I didn't leave because I didn't love you. I left because I loved you too much to risk hurting you. That's backwards, Pauline said, her voice thick with tears. Love means staying. Love means fighting. Love means getting help and trying. I did get help. I've been in treatment for 30 years. But you never came back, Pauline cried. You got stable, you said so yourself. You could have come home. You could have been in our lives. But you chose not to. Claire had no answer for that. Because Pauline was right. Somewhere along the way, fear had become an excuse. Protection had become abandonment. You said there was more, Gregory spoke up from his corner. More we needed to know. Is this it? The mental illness? The hospital? Claire's face went pale. She looked at Harold with something like terror. No, she said quietly. There's more. She reached into her bag one last time, pulled out an official-looking document. Her hands shook so badly she almost dropped it. I need to tell you something, she said. Something I've kept secret even from your father, even from Walter. Something that will... She stopped, steadied herself. Something that will change everything you think you know about our family. Harold felt cold dread settle in his stomach. What is it? He asked. Claire held out the document. It was a birth certificate. You have a brother, she whispered. His name is Samuel. The birth certificate felt like it burned Harold's hands. He stared at the official seal, the typed information, trying to make sense of words that shouldn't exist. Samuel Brennan. Born the 15th of April, 1993, Street Catherine's Hospital, New Orleans. Mother, Claire Brennan. Father, Harold Brennan. I don't understand, Harold said. Kenneth snatched the certificate from him, read it himself, then looked at Claire with something beyond anger, betrayal so deep it had its own gravity. You had another baby. His voice was dangerously quiet. You left us and had another baby. I was pregnant when I left, Claire said. I didn't know. I was so sick I missed all the signs. By the time I realized I was 5 months along, Pauline made a wounded sound, backing away until she hit the wall. We have a brother? You were alone. Harold's mind was reeling, trying to process. You gave birth alone? The hospital staff helped me. I was still very ill. The delusions were worse. The medication they could give me while pregnant was limited. Claire's voice was flat, distant, like she was reciting facts about someone else's life. I was terrified the entire pregnancy, terrified I'd hurt the baby, terrified I'd hurt myself. So you gave him away, Kenneth said. I gave him a chance. Claire's eyes flashed with the first real fire Harold had seen in her. I was in a psychiatric ward, no job, no home, barely stable enough to care for myself. What was I supposed to do? Bring him back here? Show up with a baby and my broken mind and ask you to fix everything? Yes, Kenneth shouted. That's exactly what you should have done. We were your family. I couldn't be anyone's mother. I couldn't even be a person. Claire stood, shaking. I held him for 1 hour after he was born. 1 hour, and even then, even holding my own newborn son, the voices were there, telling me to hurt him, telling me he wasn't real, telling me I was evil. She sat back down heavily, all the fight draining out of her. I signed the adoption papers in the hospital. A couple in Louisiana took him. Good people, stable people, people who could give him what I couldn't, a real life. Harold felt like the world had tilted sideways. He had a son, another son, 31 years old, grown, living somewhere in Louisiana, completely unaware that his birth family existed. Does he know about us? Pauline asked quietly. No. The adoption was closed. He knows he's adopted, his parents told him when he was young, but he doesn't know who we are. Have you ever... Harold stopped, swallowed. Once. Claire pulled a photograph from her bag. It was recent, printed from the internet by the look of it. A man in his early 30s, standing on a sailboat, grinning at the camera, beside him, a woman with kind eyes. In his arms, a small child, a little girl, maybe 2 years old. Harold took the photo with trembling hands. The man looked like him. Same build, same jawline, same way of standing with his weight slightly to one side. It was like looking at a photograph of himself at that age. His name is Samuel, Claire said. He's a teacher, high school biology. He's married to a woman named Zoe. They have a daughter, Anne. We have a niece, Pauline whispered, staring at the photo over Harold's shoulder. You've been watching him, Gregory said. How? The adoption agency has a program. If both parties want contact, they facilitate it. Samuel registered when he turned 18, left information saying he wanted to know his birth parents. I never responded. Claire's voice cracked. I was too ashamed, too afraid. But you kept track of him, Harold said. The agency sends updates. If the adoptee agrees. Samuel agreed. So every few years, I get a letter, a photo, information about his life. Claire looked at the picture in Harold's hands. He loves sailing, just like his father, his grandfather. It's in his blood. Kenneth laughed bitterly. This is insane. This is absolutely insane. Why are you telling us now? Gregory asked. Why not take this secret to your grave? Claire met his eyes. Because he deserves to know. Before I die, I want to tell him the truth, where he comes from, who his family is. But I couldn't do that without telling you first, without asking permission. Permission? Kenneth's voice rose. You want our permission to blow up some stranger's life? He's not a stranger, Claire said. He's your brother. He's nothing to me. Kenneth turned away, ran his hands through his hair. I don't know him. He doesn't know me. He has a life, a family, parents who raised him. I'm not trying to destroy anything, Claire said. I'm trying to give him the truth, the choice. He's been searching for his birth parents since he was 18. Doesn't he have the right to know? He has the right to the life he's built, Kenneth shot back. The life that doesn't include us. Pauline was crying again, clutching the photo. Look at his daughter. She's beautiful. We have a niece, Kenneth, a family we never knew about. And we still don't know them. They're strangers. Stop calling them strangers. Pauline's voice broke. They're family. Whether you like it or not, that man is our brother. That little girl is our niece. That matters. It doesn't matter if we don't know them. But we could, Pauline said softly. We could know them, if we wanted to. Harold hadn't spoken. He was still staring at the photograph, at the son he'd never met, at the granddaughter whose name he'd just learned, Samuel, Anne, real people with real lives, connected to him by blood and nothing else. What do you want from us? He asked Claire finally. I want to contact him, through the agency, tell him I'm dying, invite him to meet us, if he wants to. Claire looked at each of them. But I won't do it if you're not willing. This affects all of you. If he comes here, he's not just meeting me. He's meeting his father, his siblings, his history. I need to know you're okay with that. I'm not okay with any of this, Kenneth said. But apparently what I want doesn't matter. It matters, Claire said. Kenneth, if you tell me not to contact him, I won't. Kenneth turned to Harold. Dad, you can't be seriously considering this. Harold looked at his oldest son, saw the fear behind the anger. Kenneth had spent his whole life trying to control his environment, minimize variables, eliminate uncertainty. This was chaos. This was everything Kenneth couldn't manage or predict. I don't know, Harold admitted. I need time to think. There isn't time, Claire said quietly. I have months, maybe weeks. If I'm going to do this, it has to be soon. That's not fair, Pauline said. You can't just drop this on us and demand an immediate answer. I know it's not fair. Nothing about this is fair. Claire coughed again, pressed a tissue to her mouth. When she lowered it, there was more blood. But fair or not, this is the situation. I'm dying. I want to give Samuel the truth before I go. And I need to know if you'll be here when I do. Gregory spoke up from his corner. What if he doesn't want to meet us? Then he doesn't, Claire said. The choice is his. I'm just asking permission to give him that choice. The boathouse fell silent, except for the gentle slap of water against the hull. Harold looked around at his children, the three he'd raised, who bore the scars of Claire's absence in different ways. And he thought about the fourth one, the son he'd never known, who grew up without any of them. I want to meet him, Harold said quietly. Kenneth's head snapped toward him. I want to meet my son. Harold's voice was steady now, certain. Whatever time Claire has left, whatever comes of this, I want to know him. Even if it's only once, even if he hates us. I want him to know he has a father who would have loved him. He has a father, Kenneth said, the man who raised him. He can have more than one. Harold looked at his oldest. You're angry, I understand, but anger won't change the fact that Samuel exists. It won't change the fact that he's been searching for answers. Don't we owe him that much? Kenneth's face twisted with emotion. I don't know what we owe him. I don't know anything anymore. He walked out, footsteps heavy on the dock. They heard his car start, tires on gravel, then silence. Pauline wiped her eyes. I think we should tell him, contact him, let him decide. Gregory? Harold looked at his youngest son. Gregory stared at the photo of Samuel and his family for a long moment. He looks happy. He does, Harold agreed. What if telling him ruins that? What if not telling him leaves him always wondering? Pauline countered gently. Gregory sighed. Do what you think is right, Dad. I'll support whatever you decide. Harold turned to Claire. Write him. Through the agency. Tell him the truth. Claire's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Harold said. We don't know how this ends. Harold took Claire to his house. She had nowhere else to go, she admitted, had taken a bus from New Orleans, with only the clothes on her back and what fit in her canvas bag. The hospice program in Louisiana had given her 3 months of medication and wished her well. Pauline left after helping Claire settle in the guest room, promising to return the next day. Gregory sat in his rental car in the driveway for 20 minutes before driving away without coming inside. Kenneth didn't answer his phone. That first evening was awkward, painful. Harold made coffee, offered Claire food she couldn't eat. They sat at his kitchen table like strangers, which, in many ways, they were. 30 years had turned them into different people inhabiting the same history. "I should go to a hotel," Claire said. "This is too much." "There's no hotel in Penrose," Harold replied. "Nearest one is 40 miles north. Then I'll go there." "You're sick. You're dying. You'll stay here." Harold's tone left no room for argument. "The guest room is yours as long as you need it." Claire looked at him with something like wonder. "After everything I've done, you're still what? Still decent? Still capable of basic human kindness?" Harold set his coffee down harder than intended. "Don't mistake this for forgiveness, Claire. I'm doing this because it's the right thing to do, not because I've processed any of this." "I understand." They sat in silence. The kitchen clock ticked. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the windows. "Tell me about them," Claire said finally. "The children, who they became." Harold considered refusing, then thought about all the years Walter had sent her letters, keeping her connected to a family she'd left behind. His father had thought it mattered. Maybe it did. "Kenneth," he began slowly, "is successful. Too successful, maybe. Runs a real estate development company. Makes more money than he knows what to do with. Divorced 3 years ago. Has a daughter, Chloe. She's 16 now. Smart kid. Wants to be a veterinarian." Claire smiled, tears on her cheeks. "He was always gentle with animals." "He was." Harold paused. "He's not gentle with much else anymore. Built walls around himself. Works all the time. Controls everything he can, because he couldn't control the one thing that mattered, you leaving." The words hung between them, honest and harsh. "Pauline teaches art at a community center," Harold continued. "Never married. Had a few serious relationships that didn't work out. She's talented, really talented, but scared to put herself out there. Keeps her paintings in her apartment, won't show them in galleries. Why not? Fear of rejection, I think. If she never tries, she can never fail." Harold stared into his coffee. "She was 9 when you left, old enough to remember you, old enough to feel abandoned. It shaped everything that came after." Claire pressed a hand to her mouth, silent tears falling. "Gregory," Harold said, moved as far away as he could. "Lives in Seattle, works in IT, keeps to himself, calls on Christmas and his birthday, sometimes." He looked at Claire directly. "He made himself invisible because he thought he was the problem, the baby who drove you away. It took years of therapy for him to even talk about it." "I never wanted that," Claire whispered. "I never wanted any of them to feel that way. But they did. They do." Harold stood, walked to the window. "You asked who they became. This is who they became. 3 adults who learned early that the people you love most can disappear without warning." That lesson stuck. Behind him, he heard Claire crying softly. He should comfort her, maybe. But he couldn't. Not yet. The wound was too fresh, 30 years old but newly opened. "I'll show you the guest room," he said. Claire followed him upstairs. The room was small but clean. Harold had turned it into storage over the years, but Pauline had helped clear it out earlier. Fresh sheets on the bed, towels on the dresser, a lamp that cast warm light. "Thank you," Claire said at the door. Harold nodded, started to leave. "Harold," her voice stopped him. "I know this doesn't fix anything, but I need you to know I thought about you every day, all of you, every single day for 30 years. He turned, looked at this woman who'd been his wife, his love, the mother of his children, looked at what the years and illness had done to her. "I thought about you too," he admitted. "I hated you for a long time. Then I just missed you. Even when I didn't want to, I missed you. I'm sorry. I know." Harold's voice was rough. "Get some rest, Claire. We'll figure out the rest tomorrow." He closed the door, went to his own room, and for the first time in 30 years, cried for the marriage he'd lost. The next 3 days passed in a strange, suspended reality. Claire wrote a letter to Samuel through the adoption agency, careful words explaining who she was. that she was dying, that she wanted to meet him if he was willing. No pressure, no demands, just an invitation. They mailed it together, Harold and Claire walking to the post office like any ordinary couple running errands. The clerk, who'd known Harold for 40 years, did a double take seeing Claire, but said nothing. Small-town discretion. Pauline came by daily, bringing food, asking careful questions. She and Claire talked, halting conversations about art, about teaching, about all the years between them. It wasn't easy, but it was something. Gregory called once, spoke to Harold, asked if Claire was still there. When Harold said yes, Gregory was quiet for a long moment before saying he needed more time. Harold understood. Kenneth stayed away. On the fourth day, Clifford knocked on Harold's door. The harbour-master held his cap in his hands, looking uncertain, unusual, for a man who'd sailed through 3 hurricanes and never flinched. "Heard Claire's back," Clifford said. "Word travels fast. It's Penrose. Word travels before it happens." Clifford glanced past Harold into the house. "How are you holding up?" "Honestly, I don't know." Harold stepped onto the porch, closed the door behind him. "It's like she's dying, Cliff. She's dying, and I'm angry and grieving and confused, and I don't know which feeling to have first." Clifford nodded slowly. "When Martha was sick, those last months, I kept having all these feelings at once. Love and anger and sadness all mixed together. Made me feel crazy." Harold had forgotten that Clifford's wife had died 5 years ago. Cancer, like Claire. They'd been married 43 years. "Did you forgive her?" Harold asked. "For leaving?" "She didn't leave by choice, but she still left. She still died and left you alone." Clifford considered this. "I was angry, yeah. Angry at God, at the cancer, at her for getting sick in the first place. Doesn't make sense, being angry at someone for dying. But there it is." He put his cap back on. "What I learned is you can be angry and still love someone. You can grieve and still be furious. Feelings don't have to make sense. She left us, Cliff, walked out on me and 3 kids. She was sick. For 30 years she stayed away. Fear makes people do strange things." Clifford met his eyes. "I'm not saying what she did was right. I'm just saying maybe it's more complicated than right or wrong." Harold leaned against the porch railing. "The kids are a mess. Kenneth won't even talk to me. Pauline cries every time she sees Claire. Gregory's hiding 3,000 miles away. And there's—" He stopped. "There's what?" Harold told him about Samuel, about the son he'd never known, the adoption, the letter they'd sent. Clifford listened without interrupting, his weathered face thoughtful. "That's a lot," Clifford said finally. "That's an understatement. You gonna meet him? If he wants to come?" "Yes." Harold didn't hesitate. "He's my son. Even if I never knew him, he's still my son." Clifford clapped him on the shoulder. "Then I hope he comes. I hope he's a good man. I hope it brings something good out of all this pain." "You think it can bring something good?" "I think that's up to all of you." Clifford headed down the porch steps. "Oh, and Harold, that boat of your father's might want to do some work on it. Give yourself something to focus on besides all this heavy thinking." Harold watched him go, considered the suggestion. The boat. The Mercy. The thing that had started this whole mess when the kids came to fight over it, before Claire appeared. That afternoon Harold went to the boathouse. He was surprised to find Pauline already there, standing on the deck of the Mercy, sketching in a notebook. "Hey, sweetheart," he said. She looked up, smiled. "Hey, Dad. Hope you don't mind. I needed somewhere to think. This is a good place for it." Harold climbed aboard, sat beside her. "What are you drawing?" She showed him rough sketches of the boat, different angles, different lighting. "I thought if we're going to restore it, I should document what it looks like now. Before and after, you know." "We're restoring it?" Harold raised an eyebrow. "I don't know. Maybe." Pauline set her notebook down. "Kenneth still wants to sell. Gregory doesn't care. But I think Grandpa Walter was right. I think working on this boat together might help us. Give us something to do besides fall apart. Harold looked at his daughter, saw her mother in her face, saw the hope and fear mixed together in her eyes. All right, he said. Let's restore it. Even without Kenneth? We'll start without him. Maybe he'll come around. Harold stood, offered his hand. Come on, let's see what needs doing. They spent the rest of the afternoon cataloguing repairs, hull damage, engine trouble, rot in the deck boards. It was extensive. It would take months, maybe a year. But it was possible. When they locked up the boathouse that evening, Pauline hugged him tight. Thanks, Dad, she said. For what? For still being here, for not leaving when things got hard. Harold held his daughter, felt her shake with silent tears, and wondered if maybe that's all he'd ever really done, stayed when staying was the hardest thing. The reply from Samuel came 6 days after they mailed the letter. Harold was having coffee with Claire in the kitchen when his phone rang. Unknown Louisiana number. His hand shook as he answered. Is this Harold Brennan? The voice was male, young, uncertain. Yes. Harold's heart pounded. This is Samuel. A pause, heavy with emotion. I got your letter. Your wife's letter. I've been staring at it for 2 days, trying to decide if I should call. I'm glad you did. Harold's voice came out rough. He put the call on speaker, motioned for Claire to come closer. We're glad you did. We? Samuel's voice sharpened slightly. Who else is there? Your mother? Claire. She's here with me. Silence on the other end, stretched so long Harold thought the call had dropped. Samuel, Claire said softly, are you still there? I'm here. His voice was tight, controlled. This is a lot to process. I know. I'm sorry. Don't apologize yet. I haven't decided if I'm angry or grateful or both. Samuel took a breath they could hear through the phone. Tell me why. Why now? After 31 years, why reach out now? Because I'm dying, Claire said simply. Pancreatic cancer. I have maybe 3 months, and before I go, I wanted you to know the truth. Where you came from, who your family is. Another long silence. My family is the Richardsons, Samuel said finally. Frank and Denise Richardson. They raised me, loved me, gave me everything. I know, Claire said. I chose them for you. They were good people. I knew they'd love you the way I couldn't. The way you couldn't. Or the way you wouldn't. There was an edge to his voice now. The way I couldn't, Claire said firmly. I was sick, Samuel. Severely mentally ill. I couldn't trust myself around you. I gave you up to keep you safe. That's what the agency told me. When I requested my birth records at 18, Samuel's voice softened slightly. They gave me copies of the psychiatric evaluations, the hospital records. I know you were sick. Harold felt something loosen in his chest. Samuel knew. He'd known for 13 years that his birth mother hadn't abandoned him out of cruelty or selfishness. Did they tell you about us? Harold asked. About me? No. The adoption was closed. All identifying information was redacted. Samuel paused. Until now. Until your letter. I didn't know you existed, Harold said. Not until a week ago. Claire left when she was pregnant. She never told me. He could hear Samuel processing this information. So you have other children, Samuel said. The letter mentioned siblings. 3, Harold confirmed. Kenneth is 42. Pauline is 39. Gregory is 35. You are between Pauline and Gregory. I have siblings. Samuel's voice was strange, wondering. I always wanted siblings. They want to meet you, Claire said. If you're willing. I don't know if I'm willing. Samuel was honest, at least. I have a life, you know? A wife. A daughter. I teach high school biology in Baton Rouge. I'm happy. I don't know if I want to complicate that with all of this. We understand, Harold said, even though his heart was breaking. The choice is yours. We just wanted you to know the truth, that you have a father who would have loved you, siblings who... He stopped, uncertain. Who, what? Samuel prompted. Who are dealing with this news in their own ways, Harold admitted. It's complicated. Our family is complicated, because your wife left and you raised 3 kids alone. It wasn't a question. Samuel had clearly been thinking about this since the letter arrived. Yes. And now she's back because she's dying. Yes. And you're all just what? Forgiving her? Playing happy family before she goes? The bitterness in Samuel's voice caught Harold off guard. No, he said carefully. We're not playing anything. We're trying to figure out how to be in the same room without falling apart, how to process 30 years of absence and pain, how to understand what mental illness does to a person, to a family. I understand mental illness, Samuel said quietly. My mom, Denise, she has bipolar disorder. I grew up watching her struggle with it, watching my dad support her through the hard times. He paused. So I get it. I get that sometimes people can't be what we need them to be, even when they love us. Claire's eyes filled with tears. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for understanding. I didn't say I forgive you, Samuel said. I said I understand. There's a difference. I know. They talked for another 20 minutes. Samuel asked questions about Harold's life, about the siblings he'd never met, about Penrose and the boat, and Walter, who'd orchestrated this reunion from beyond the grave. Harold answered honestly, painting no prettier picture than reality warranted. Finally, Samuel said, I need to talk to my wife, to Zoe. This affects her too, our daughter. Of course, Harold said. Can I call you back? In a few days, whenever you're ready. And if I decide not to come, then we'll respect that, Harold finished. No pressure, Samuel, this is your choice. After they hung up, Harold and Claire sat at the kitchen table in silence. Claire was crying, quiet tears of relief and grief mixed together. He sounded kind, she said finally. He did. He sounded like you. Harold smiled despite himself. He did. They told Pauline first. She was at the boathouse, working on stripping old paint from the hull when Harold arrived. He helped her down from the ladder, sat her on the deck, and told her about the phone call. Pauline cried, of course. But they were happy tears this time, or at least hopeful ones. What if he comes? She asked. What do we even say to him? I have no idea, Harold admitted. But we'll figure it out. Gregory was harder to reach. When Harold finally got him on the phone that evening, Gregory listened in silence to the news about Samuel's call. So he might come, Gregory said finally. Maybe. He's thinking about it. And if he does, you want us all here. One big happy reunion. Gregory. I'm not being sarcastic, Dad. I don't know how to do this. How to meet a brother I didn't know existed. How to have a relationship with a woman who's about to die. How to... He stopped. How do you do this? You just do, Harold said. One moment at a time. That's all any of us can do. Kenneth didn't answer his phone. Harold left a voicemail about Samuel's call, asking Kenneth to please call back. The silence felt deliberate, pointed. 3 days later, Harold's phone rang again. Louisiana number. Mr. Brennan? It's Samuel. Harold's heart jumped. Samuel. Did you decide? I talked to Zoe. We talked for hours, actually. She helped me think it through. Samuel took a breath. I'd like to come. Meet you. Meet them. If the invitation's still open. It is, Harold said immediately. God, yes, it is. I can be there this weekend. I'll bring Zoe and Anne, my daughter. If that's okay. More than okay. I'm scared, Samuel admitted. I don't know what to expect. Don't know if this will be good or terrible or both. Neither do I, Harold said honestly. But I'm glad you're coming. His voice cracked. I'm glad I'll get to meet my son. The word hung in the air between them. Son. Real and true and impossible. I'll text you the details, Samuel said. See you Saturday, Mr. Brennan. Harold, he corrected. Call me Harold. See you Saturday, Harold. When Harold told Claire, she collapsed into his arms, sobbing. When he told Pauline, she started making lists of things to prepare. When he told Gregory, his youngest son said quietly, I'll come home. For this, I'll come home. Kenneth still didn't answer his phone. Saturday morning arrived grey and cold. Harold stood at the boathouse window, watching the parking lot, watching for a car that would bring his son home. Claire sat on the bench, pale and exhausted. Pauline paced. Gregory stood in the corner, familiar position, making himself small. What if he doesn't like us? Pauline asked, for the 10th time. Then he doesn't, Harold said, but at least he'll know us. A car pulled into the lot. Louisiana plates. A man got out, tall, Harold's build. A woman followed, holding a small child. He's here, Harold whispered. Samuel walked toward the boathouse slowly, like a man approaching something both wanted and feared. He stopped at the doorway, looking at the 4 people inside his birth family, strangers who shared his blood. Hi, he said simply. Harold stepped forward. Hi, son. And Samuel. This man he'd never known, this piece of his heart he'd never realized was missing, started to cry. Harold didn't think. He just moved forward and pulled Samuel into a hug. The young man stiffened for a moment, then relaxed, his arms coming up to return the embrace. They stood there, father and son, holding each other for the first time, both of them crying. When they finally separated, Samuel wiped his eyes, embarrassed. Sorry. I didn't plan on. Don't apologize, Harold said roughly. I've been waiting 31 years for this. Zoe stepped forward, Anne on her hip. She was pretty, with warm brown eyes and an open face. I'm Zoe, and this is Anne. Harold looked at his granddaughter, 2 years old, with dark curls and curious eyes. She studied him solemnly, then reached out a small hand and touched his face. Papa, she said. Zoe laughed softly. She calls everyone Papa right now. Her latest word. I don't mind, Harold said, his voice thick. I don't mind at all. Claire approached slowly, afraid, it seemed, that Samuel might bolt. Thank you for coming. Samuel looked at her, really looked at her, and Harold saw him trying to reconcile the woman in front of him with whatever image he'd built in his mind over the years. You look like me, Samuel said finally. I have your eyes. And your father's everything else. Claire smiled through tears. You're so tall. 6'2". Always been tall. Samuel glanced around at Pauline and Gregory, both standing back, uncertain. You must be my siblings. Pauline stepped forward first, as Harold knew she would. I'm Pauline. This is so weird. I'm your sister. Yeah. Samuel smiled slightly. Weird is the word for it. They hugged awkwardly, Pauline crying again, Samuel patting her back like he wasn't sure what else to do. Gregory approached last, extended his hand formally. Gregory. Samuel shook it. Samuel, but my friends call me Sam. Sam, Gregory repeated. I like that. They stood there, these 4 siblings who'd never known each other, studying each other's faces, looking for familiar features, common ground. You have Dad's hands, Pauline said suddenly, looking at Samuel's hands. Long fingers. Same hands. Samuel looked down at his hands, then at Harold's. Huh. Never thought about what my birth father's hands might look like. Did you think about it? Harold asked. About us? All the time, Samuel admitted. Especially after I turned 18 and got the records. I knew my birth mother was sick, knew she gave me up out of love, not abandonment. But I always wondered about my father. If he knew about me, if he would have wanted me. I would have, Harold said firmly. I would have wanted you, would have raised you, would have loved you. Samuel's eyes reddened again. That helps. Knowing that helps. Zoe suggested they all sit, and they did, arranged awkwardly on the boat's deck, on the dock, wherever there was space. Anne toddled around, exploring, occasionally returning to her mother for reassurance. Samuel told them about his life. Growing up in Baton Rouge with the Richardsons, his dad was a mechanic, his mum a school librarian, good people who loved him fiercely. He'd had a happy childhood, knew he was adopted from age 5, never felt anything but wanted. They told me my birth mother was young and sick, Samuel said, that she loved me enough to give me a better life. They never spoke badly of you. He looked at Claire. They made sure I knew I was chosen, not given away. Claire's face crumpled. They sound like wonderful people. They are. They're. Samuel paused. They're my parents. I need you to understand that. Whatever relationship we build, it doesn't replace them. We know, Harold said. We're not trying to replace anyone. We're grateful to know you. Samuel relaxed slightly. He talked more about becoming a teacher, meeting Zoe in college, their wedding, Anne's birth, how holding his daughter for the first time had made him think about his birth mother, about the choice she'd made. I couldn't do it, Samuel said quietly. Give her up. Even if it was the right thing, I couldn't. So I understand how hard it must have been. He looked at Claire. It doesn't erase the pain of not knowing you. But I understand. They talked for hours. Pauline shared stories about growing up in Penrose, about their father raising them alone, about the boat and Walter and the complicated mess of their family. Gregory spoke less, but was present in a way Harold rarely saw him engaged, asking questions, genuinely interested. When Anne got fussy, Zoe took her for a walk around the harbour. Claire excused herself, exhausted, and Pauline helped her to Harold's car to rest. That left Harold, Samuel and Gregory alone on the boat. Where's the fourth one? Samuel asked. Kenneth? Harold and Gregory exchanged glances. Kenneth's having trouble with this, Harold said carefully. He's very angry at your mother. At the whole situation. Because she left, Samuel guessed. Because she left, and now she's back, and there's you, and it's a lot of change all at once. Gregory leaned against the railing. Kenneth likes control. This is chaos. Will he come? Samuel asked. I'd like to meet him. I don't know, Harold admitted. I hope so. They showed Samuel the boat, the Mercy, the vessel that had brought them all together in strange and unexpected ways. Samuel ran his hands over the wood, examining the structure with a sailor's eye. You said you sail, Harold said. Yeah, have a 26-footer. Nothing fancy, but she's mine. Take Anne out sometimes. Zoe gets seasick, but she tries. Samuel smiled. There's something about being on the water. Makes everything else seem smaller. I know exactly what you mean, Harold said. This boat saved my life more than once. After Mom left, after your mother left, after bad days, after nights when I didn't think I could do it another day. Harold touched the helm. I'd come here. Work on the engine, mend nets, just sit and breathe. The boat never judged me, never asked questions I couldn't answer. Samuel was quiet for a moment. Can I ask you something? Anything. Do you hate her? My Claire? Harold considered the question carefully. I did, for a long time. Then the hate turned to hurt. Then the hurt turned to absence, a space where she used to be. He looked at Samuel. Now she's back, and I don't know what I feel. Sad, mostly. For all of us. For the time we lost. Do you still love her? The question caught Harold off guard. Did he? Could you still love someone who'd hurt you so deeply? I love who she was, he said finally. The girl I married, the woman I built a life with. I don't know who she is now. We're strangers trying to remember how to be family. Samuel nodded slowly. That's honest. I appreciate honest. They talked more about the boat, about restoration plans, about Walter's wish that the family work on it together. That's why you were all fighting, Samuel asked. When I called the first time, you said it was complicated. Kenneth wanted to sell. Pauline wanted to restore. Gregory didn't care. Harold smiled wryly. Classic family dynamics. Then Claire showed up, and the boat became the least of our problems. But you're restoring it now. Pauline and I started. Gregory's helping when he's in town. Gregory spoke up quietly. Grandpa Walter knew what he was doing, leaving us this boat, making us deal with it together. Sounds like a smart man, Samuel said. He was. Harold felt the familiar ache of loss. I wish you could have known him. He would have loved you. He knew about me, Samuel said. It wasn't a question. Claire's letter mentioned he's the one who convinced her to reach out. He did, and he never told me. Harold still felt the sting of that betrayal, loving and painful at once. Kept your mother's location secret for 20 years, wrote to her, sent her pictures of you kids, all without saying a word to me. Are you angry about that? I was. Now I'm grateful he cared enough to try, to keep the connection alive even when Claire couldn't come home. Samuel absorbed this. I'd like to see the letters. If that's okay. The ones he sent her, they're at the house. Claire has them. We're staying. Samuel smiled. Zoe wants to hear everything. She's probably interrogating your daughter right now. He was right. When they found Pauline and Zoe down by the water, Anne was collecting rocks while the two women talked animatedly. Your sister's been telling me stories, Zoe called out, about you as kids. Oh no, Gregory muttered. Good stories, Pauline assured him. Mostly good stories. They gathered everyone and headed to Harold's house. Claire was resting in the guest room, but came down when she heard them arrive. She moved slowly, painfully, the cancer taking its visible toll. Samuel watched her with the trained eye of someone who'd seen illness before. How long? He asked Harold quietly. Weeks, maybe a month. I'm glad I came now, then. Dinner was chaotic, too many people in Harold's small kitchen, Anne making a mess, conversation overlapping. But it was good chaos, family chaos, the kind Harold had almost forgotten existed. After they ate, after Anne fell asleep on Zoe's lap, Claire brought out the letters. Walter's words spanning 2 decades, documenting births and graduations, and heartbreaks and triumphs. Samuel read them all, tears streaming down his face. He loved you, Claire said. All of you. This was his way of trying to keep the family together, even when it was broken. It worked, Pauline said softly. We're here. We're together. Not all of us, Gregory pointed out. Kenneth still. The doorbell rang. They all froze. Harold opened the door. Kenneth stood on the porch, looking exhausted and uncertain, and maybe a little bit hopeful. Kenneth, Harold said, surprise and relief flooding through him. You came? I came. Kenneth stepped inside, stopped when he saw the crowded living room. His eyes landed on Samuel, and for a moment, nobody spoke. Samuel stood slowly, setting aside the letters. You must be Kenneth. And you must be the brother I didn't know existed. Kenneth's voice was neutral, carefully controlled. Samuel, right? Sam. Most people call me Sam. They stood there, sizing each other up. Kenneth was older by 11 years, polished and professional even in casual clothes. Samuel was younger, more relaxed, wearing jeans and a sailboat t-shirt. But they had the same jawline, the same way of standing with their weight on one leg. The resemblance to Harold was unmistakable in both of them. I wasn't going to come, Kenneth admitted. I was halfway back to Portland when I turned around. What changed your mind? Pauline asked. Kenneth looked at his father. You left me a voicemail. You said you were meeting your son for the first time, and you wished all your children could be there. All of them. His voice cracked slightly. I realized I was letting anger make me miss something important. Again, he turned to Samuel. I don't know you. I don't know if I'm ready to know you. But you're here, and your family, and I'm tired of running away from things that scare me. Samuel extended his hand. Then let's start with hello. Kenneth shook it, then surprised everyone by pulling Samuel into a brief hug. Hello, little brother. I'm 6'2", Samuel said with a slight smile. Not that little. I'm 6'3". I win. Kenneth stepped back, saw Zoe and Anne for the first time. And this is my wife, Zoe, my daughter, Anne. Kenneth's expression softened, looking at the sleeping child. I have a daughter too, Chloe. She's 16. I'd like to meet her, Samuel said, if that's okay. Yeah, I'd like that. Kenneth moved further into the room, nodded stiffly at Claire. Mother, Kenneth. Claire's voice was barely a whisper. Thank you for coming. Don't thank me yet. I'm still angry at you. I know. I don't forgive you. I know. But I'm here. Kenneth sat heavily on the couch. I'm here and I'm trying, and that's all I've got right now. Harold felt something tight in his chest loosen. All 4 of his children, in one room. For the first time in their lives, all 4 together. They talked late into the night. Kenneth asked Samuel questions, careful, probing questions about his life, his family, what he wanted from this reunion. Samuel answered honestly, not trying to be anything other than what he was, a man curious about his origins, but secure in the life he'd built. I'm not here to claim anything, Samuel said at one point. I'm not after money or inheritance or some kind of father-son relationship that replaces the one I have. I just wanted to know where I came from, who I came from. And now you know, Kenneth said. Now I know. Samuel looked around at all of them, and it's strange and complicated and maybe a little bit wonderful. Pauline had been sketching during the conversation, quick drawings of Samuel's face, of Anne sleeping, of the family gathered together. She showed them to Samuel, who studied them with interest. You're really talented, he said. Thank you, Pauline blushed. I don't usually show people my work. Why not? She shrugged. Fear, I guess. Of rejection. Of not being good enough. These are good enough, Samuel said firmly. More than good enough. Coming from a stranger, a brother, the words seemed to land differently than when Harold or her friends said them. Pauline smiled, really smiled, for the first time in days. Claire excused herself around 11, exhausted. Harold helped her upstairs, made sure she had her medication. They're all here, she said wonderingly. All 4 of them, they are. I never thought. She stopped, coughing. I never thought I'd see this. Rest now, Harold said gently. They'll still be here tomorrow. When he came back downstairs, Gregory was showing Samuel photos on his phone, pictures of Seattle, of his apartment, of the life he'd built 3,000 miles away. You ever think about moving back? Samuel asked. Sometimes, Gregory admitted, more now than before. Because of her? Samuel gestured upstairs. Because of all of this. Because I'm tired of running away. Gregory glanced at his siblings. We spent 30 years being broken. Maybe it's time to try being fixed. Can you fix something this broken? Kenneth asked. I don't know, Gregory said, but we can try. Later, after Zoe had taken Anne to the guest room and the others had gone, Pauline to her apartment, Kenneth to a hotel, Harold and Samuel sat on the back porch. The harbour was dark, only a few lights visible across the water. Thank you for coming, Harold said. For giving us this chance. Thank you for wanting me, Samuel replied, even though you didn't know I existed. I have a question, Harold said, and you don't have to answer if you don't want to. Ask. What do you want from this? From us? Long term, I mean. After your mother, after Claire's gone. Samuel was quiet for a long time, watching the dark water. I don't know, he said finally. I have parents. I have a life. But, he paused, but there's something about knowing where you came from. Who gave you your hands, your height, your love of sailing? It matters, you know. It does. So maybe we stay in touch. Email, phone calls. Maybe Anne grows up knowing she has a grandfather and uncles and an aunt. Maybe it's not perfect or traditional, but it's something. Samuel looked at Harold. Would that be enough for you? More than enough, Harold said. Whatever you're willing to give, it's more than I had yesterday. They sat in comfortable silence, father and son, connected by blood and 31 years of absence, finding their way towards something that might, someday, feel like family. Inside, the house was full of people who belonged to him. 4 children, 1 daughter-in-law, 1 granddaughter, and somewhere upstairs, dying slowly, the woman who'd given him all of it. Harold looked at Samuel and thought about Walter, about the boat, about how sometimes the things that break us are also the things that bring us together. Your grandfather was right, he said. About what? The boat, leaving it to us, forcing us to deal with each other. Harold smiled. He knew we needed something to fix, something to build together. Did it work? Harold looked at his son, this man he'd just met, who already felt essential, and said, "Yeah, I think maybe it did." The next morning, Harold woke to find Claire in the kitchen, weaker than yesterday but determined. She was making coffee with shaking hands when he came downstairs. "You should be resting," he said. "I've been resting for 30 years. She poured 2 cups, handed him one. "I want to spend what time I have left being awake." Samuel and his family stayed through the weekend. They spent Saturday at the boathouse, all of them together, working on the Mercy. Samuel proved to be skilled with boats, his hands confident with the repairs. He and Harold worked side by side on the engine, while Kenneth and Gregory tackled the deckboards. Pauline kept Anne entertained, the little girl following her around, calling her Lala because she couldn't pronounce Pauline. Zoe helped Claire organize Walter's old charts, the 2 women talking quietly about family, about love, about the complicated nature of forgiveness. "Do you forgive her?" Zoe asked quietly, glancing at Claire. "For leaving you with 3 children?" Harold, overhearing, paused in his work. He'd been asking himself the same question for days. "I'm trying to," he said finally. "Forgiveness isn't a switch you flip. It's something you choose every day. Some days I can do it. Some days I'm still too angry." "That's fair," Zoe said. By Sunday afternoon, the boat looked better than it had in years. Fresh paint gleamed on the hull. The deck was solid under their feet. The engine turned over smoothly after Samuel's careful work. They stood back, all 6 of them, looking at what they'd built together. "Grandpa Walter would be proud," Gregory said softly. "He would," Harold agreed. That evening, before Samuel had to drive back to Louisiana, they gathered one more time at Harold's house. Claire had something she wanted to give Samuel, a small wooden box that Harold had never seen before. "I made this," she said, her hands trembling as she opened it. Inside was a tiny boat, carved from wood, no bigger than Samuel's palm. "I made it the week you were born. Before I had to give you up, I wanted you to have something from me." Samuel took the little boat carefully, studying the clumsy carving. It was rough, unfinished, made by unpracticed hands. "It's not very good," Claire said, embarrassed. "It's perfect," Samuel said firmly. "Thank you." He showed it to Anne, who reached for it with curious fingers. "Boat, baby. Grandma made this boat for Daddy." Anne touched it gently, sensing its importance. Kenneth cleared his throat. "I have something too, for all of you." He pulled out his phone, showed them a document. "I talked to my lawyer yesterday, had him draw up papers to officially split the boat 5 ways. Dad, you keep the controlling interest, but the rest of us, all 4 of us, we're equal partners." "Kenneth," Harold started, but his son held up a hand. "I was wrong about selling it, about thinking everything has to have a dollar value." Kenneth looked at the boat visible through the window. "This matters. Family matters. And I'm tired of pretending it doesn't." Pauline hugged him fiercely. Gregory clasped his shoulder. Samuel nodded his thanks. "There's one condition," Kenneth added. "We finish the restoration, all of us, together, however long it takes. Deal, Pauline said immediately. I'm in Seattle, Gregory pointed out. So visit more often, Kenneth said. We'll work around your schedule. Gregory smiled. Okay, I'll visit more often. They all looked at Samuel, who lived furthest away. I can come up once a month, Samuel offered. Maybe more in the summer when school's out. Anne would love it. And Zoe's been wanting to see more of the country. Then it's settled, Harold said. We restore the Mercy together. Claire watched them all, with tears streaming down her face. This is what I wanted, what I came back for. To see you together, to see you choosing each other. We're choosing you too, Pauline said softly, taking her mother's hand. I'm still angry. I'm still hurt. But I'm choosing to try. To understand, to forgive, eventually. Kenneth was slower, but he nodded. I don't know if I can get there, to forgiveness, but I can be here. It's everything, Claire said. Gregory knelt beside her chair. I blamed myself for 35 years. I thought you left because of me, because I was too much, too difficult, too broken. Never, Claire said fiercely, cupping his face. You were wanted. You were loved. I left because I was broken, not you. Never you. Gregory cried then, the tears of a child who'd finally heard the words he needed. Claire held him, this youngest son she'd abandoned, and they grieved together for all the lost years. Samuel stood apart, watching this family that was his, but wasn't, connected by blood, but separated by time and circumstance. Harold went to him, put a hand on his shoulder. You're part of this, Harold said. However much or little you want to be, you're part of this family. I know, Samuel said. I feel it. It's strange, but I feel it. That night, after Samuel and his family had driven away with promises to return, after Kenneth had gone back to his hotel and Gregory to his rental, after Pauline had kissed her father goodnight and left, Harold sat with Claire in the quiet house. Thank you, she said, for letting me do this, for letting me see them one more time, for giving Samuel the chance to know his family. You gave us that chance, Harold corrected. You came back. That took courage. Or desperation. Maybe both. They sat in silence, two people who'd loved each other once, who'd built a life and lost it, who were finding their way towards something that wasn't quite forgiveness, but might be peace. Harold? Claire's voice was small. Will you stay with me? When it gets bad? I don't want to die alone. He took her hand, this woman who'd broken his heart and given him everything worth having. You won't be alone, he promised. I'll be here. And he meant it. Claire died on a Tuesday morning in late October, 6 weeks after Samuel's first visit. She passed quietly in the guest room, Harold holding her hand, all 4 children gathered around the bed. It was peaceful, as much as death ever is. She'd said her goodbyes the night before, told each of them she loved them, that she was proud of who they'd become despite everything. At the end, she looked at Harold and whispered, "Thank you for not giving up on them. On us." Then she closed her eyes and didn't open them again. They held the funeral at the harbour, a small gathering of people who'd known Claire in the brief time she'd been back. Clifford came. Irene came. A few neighbours who remembered the young woman who'd lived in Harold's house 30 years ago. Samuel brought his family. Kenneth brought Chloe, who cried even though she'd never known her grandmother. They scattered Claire's ashes from the Mercy, all of them aboard together. Harold stood at the helm, his 4 children around him, and released his wife into the water she'd loved when she was young and whole. "Goodbye, Claire," he said softly. The wind carried her away. 3 months later, on a cold January morning, Harold stood at the boathouse watching his children work. The Mercy was nearly finished. Months of weekends spent sanding and painting, repairing and rebuilding. Samuel came up once a month as promised, sometimes more. Kenneth drove down from Portland every other weekend. Gregory had started looking at jobs in Maine, talking about moving back permanently. Pauline was there almost daily, documenting the restoration in sketches and paintings. Today they were installing the final piece, a new compass for the helm. Samuel had commissioned it, had it engraved. The Brennan family 2024. Harold held it carefully, remembering the compass his father had treasured, the one that had sat on this very shelf for decades. "Ready, Dad?" Samuel asked, standing beside him. Harold nodded. Together, they mounted the compass in its place, secured it firmly. It gleamed in the winter light, new and bright and hopeful. "It's beautiful," Pauline said, taking a photo. "Grandpa Walter would love it," Gregory added. Kenneth ran his hand over the brass casing. "A new direction for all of us." They stood there, the five of them, looking at what they'd built. The boat was transformed still, the Mercy, still carrying the history of 2 generations, but renewed, made whole again through patient work and stubborn love. "Should we take her out?" Samuel suggested. "In January," Kenneth raised an eyebrow. "It's freezing." "So, we're New Englanders." "Mostly." Samuel grinned. "Come on, first voyage of the new Mercy, all of us together." Harold looked at his children, these 4 people who'd found their way back to each other through grief and truth, and a boat that had refused to let them stay broken. "Let's do it," he said. They cast off, Harold at the helm with Samuel beside him, learning the controls the way his siblings had learned years ago. Kenneth and Gregory worked the lines. Pauline sat on the bow, sketchbook in hand, capturing the moment. The harbour was quiet, cold, beautiful. The Mercy moved through the water smoothly, all the repairs holding, the engine purring. Harold felt something settle in his chest, not quite peace, but close. Contentment, maybe. Gratitude. He thought about Claire, about the broken woman who'd come back to give them all one last gift. He thought about Walter, who'd orchestrated this reunion from beyond the grave. He thought about 30 years of single parenting, of loneliness and determination, of wondering if he was doing anything right. Looking at his children now, all 4 of them, he thought, maybe he had. "Dad," Pauline called from the bow. "You okay?" "I'm good, sweetheart," he called back. "I'm really good." Samuel took the helm fully, Harold stepping back to let him. His son and he could think that now, without pain, with only wonder, guided the boat with confident hands. Kenneth and Gregory joined Harold on the deck. "Mom would have loved this," Kenneth said quietly. "Seeing us all together." "She did see it," Gregory reminded him. "Those last weeks, she saw it." "I'm glad," Kenneth said. "I'm glad we gave her that." They sailed for an hour, talking and laughing, sharing stories. Kenneth told them about Chloe's acceptance to college. Gregory announced he'd accepted a job in Portland, would be moving back in the spring. Pauline revealed she'd signed up for a gallery showing, was finally ready to share her work with the world. Samuel talked about Anne, about teaching, about how much Zoe loved visiting Maine. "We're thinking about getting a summer place up here," he said. "Nothing fancy, just somewhere to bring Anne, let her know her family." Harold's heart swelled, hearing it. Family. They were becoming a family. As they headed back to the harbour, Harold stood at the stern, watching the wake spread behind them. He thought about the journey, not just this sail, but the whole long path that had brought them here. From Claire's leaving to her return, from Walter's death to Samuel's arrival, from 4 broken individuals to something that resembled a whole. The boat had done what Walter knew it would, brought them together, given them something to build, not just wood and steel, but trust, connection, love. Samuel guided the Mercy into her slip perfectly, Kenneth and Gregory securing the lines. They all climbed out, stood on the dock, looking at their work. "Same time next month?" Samuel asked. "Same time next month," Harold confirmed. They dispersed slowly, Kenneth to his car, Gregory to meet a friend, Pauline to her studio. Samuel lingered, helping Harold lock up the boathouse. "Thank you," Samuel said, "for this, all of this." "Thank you for coming," Harold replied, "for giving an old man the chance to know his son." They hugged, the gesture easier now after months of practice. Harold watched Samuel drive away, then turned back to the harbour. The sun was setting, painting the water gold and orange. The Mercy sat in her slip, waiting for the next voyage. He thought about Claire's last words to him, about not giving up. He thought about his children, scattered but connected now, building something new from the pieces of what had broken. He thought about the compass, pointing toward a future they'd choose together. And standing there in the cold January evening, Harold Brennan smiled. Some losses never heal, they just become part of who you are. But sometimes, if you're willing to do the work, if you're willing to face the pain and choose forgiveness over bitterness, you can build something new. Not what you had before, something different, something honest, something worth keeping. The boat rocked gently in her slip, and Harold headed home.